Hi there, this is Daniel with End Time Country Living, and I am out in my orchard working on my fruit trees. Some of the ones that I planted out last year are now blooming, and they're too young for that, so I'm coming out here and picking off and cutting off the blooms so that it won't be putting energy into trying to produce fruit, or even being put energy into letting the blossoms open and be pollinated and that kind of stuff. So that's something that's important to do, even up to maybe 3 or 4 years. Even the Bible talks about removing the fruit, or not picking the fruit, which I think would be better to not even let it fruit for the first 3 or 4 years, and so that you get much better fruit over the life of the tree later on. So here's an example of a fruit tree that is too young to be bearing fruit. It's only about 5 feet high, and it's got quite a few branches, and the stem's getting bigger. This is one I purchased as a little bare root tree, sort of. It was in a bag or something like that, and so it's getting up to size, but it's still much too young, especially for the amount of blossoms that it's putting on this year. So I'm going to be coming through and cleaning these all off like I did last year on it. There's another fruit tree that I just had planted last year and had grafted the previous year, so it wasn't even one that was several years old to start with. It's only basically 2 years old right now, and so, well, let's see, is it even that? Well, it was, let's see, last year I grafted it, so I guess you could say it's only 1 year old, and so it's definitely too young to be putting all the blossoms that it is. As you can see, it's got quite a few. Quite a few there, and these are already starting to open up here, and all the way down here. As you can see, it's pretty skinny so far. There's the grafting point where I grafted it on there. So this one is, let's see what this one is here. So this is a little aluminum tag. This is how you mark the trees so you can continue to know what they are. And you flip it around here. You can see what this thing is here. This is my Ida Red. And so this was, let's see, grafted in 2018. So I guess, well, okay, so I guess I'm off by 1 year. So it's a two-year-old right now, since it's 2020 this spring. So it was about March that I grafted it in 2018, but still it's going to take quite a few more years, maybe another 2 or 3 years before I would let it produce any fruit. So here is a little Honeycrisp apple tree that I planted several years ago, and you can see the diameter, so it never did get very big. This was one I had purchased as a bud grafted one, and had even planted it. This was in my video of the Ellen White method of planting fruit trees, but some what's called peach tree borers got in there, and you can see the point right here. They destroyed it and killed it, and all the way around the bark is off. Here's the bark on the back side there. So it basically killed the tree, and it fell over at one point. I tried to stand it up and was hoping it was going to survive, but it never did. So it also had a little bit of more damage here from another infection of the bark there. Not sure exactly what it is or what causes it or how to prevent it at this point. So there's the label on there, semi-dwarf one, but it's all the bigger it really got, and it's all dead now, so it's very sad. So unfortunately, it's going to have to be dug up and replaced here eventually here. This year everything's on lockdown, so I'm not even sure there's able to get trees very easily. I have to order them, and so not sure where to get that from. There's the Home Orchard Society was doing stuff, but right now I'm just swamped with work, and so I have like very little time to even think about getting any new trees this year. So I'm not sure it's really going to happen for me. I'd like to do it, but it's one more thing on my priority list that isn't probably going to get done this year. So unfortunately, so there'll be some vacancies. I also had a nectarine that I had gotten that's also dead, and another little apple tree that I had planted about 5 years ago that never really took off and is now dead. So I got about 3 vacancies, places where I can put trees. So need to figure out what I want to do with that and get some new trees to put in those places there and hopefully get them going. And thinking about my little trees here that didn't quite make it, it reminds me of how fragile life is and that we really aren't guaranteed tomorrow. You know, there's hearing about different people that either have heart attacks and strokes and things like that, that everything is pretty much fine until an event happens, and then all of a sudden, you know, life seems a lot more fragile, and sometimes they make it and sometimes they don't. And these little fruit trees are a reminder that, you know, sometimes they make it and sometimes you don't. Sometimes they look great for several years, and all of a sudden one spring you look at them and it's like, well, I'm not sure they're going to make it. The buds aren't coming out, and that's what happened with this little northern spy. I can see the roots down here. They're still alive here, the rootstock. So I could possibly do another graft onto it here, but never had terribly good success with doing that. Seems like they're always kind of spindly and they never do produce very well as far as, you know, producing a nice strong stalk that I can graft onto, or trunk. But I might try it on this one. Weed out all the rest that aren't doing well. Find the nicest one and stake it up, and hopefully that will do well. But just to remember to look up and remember God, and make yourself right with God. Look at the things in your life that you know aren't right. Confess and ask God to help you to reform and do the things that you know are best. The Bible tells us are right, and the best way to do things is God's way. So continually ask God to transform your life. And so take a look at your life, and like I said, we're not always guaranteed tomorrow. So, all right, that's all I had for you today. I'll catch you on the next video. All right, bye-bye.